What's going on, guys? Welcome back. In this episode, we're going to be doing a couple of things related to the controls, and then we're going to move forward from there. We're going to start out with the carburetor. It's ready for installation. It's been cleaned up. It's been set back to factory specifications for all the air adjustment, throttle stop screw, those kinds of things. All the main jet and pilot jet have been cleaned, and we got new hoses, and a new cable. So we're going to be setting that up here. First off, one thing I want to mention. Let's go down to the motor real quick. When I was editing episode 11, I noticed that the cylinder head gasket was out of place, and then I needed to go back and check it. When I checked it, I had actually crushed the gasket. So I pulled the cylinder head off, obviously, and I'm going to be getting a replacement gasket for that. I'm not going to drag you guys through the process of putting the gasket on a second time. I'll just reiterate the importance of... Here, let's see if I can... I'll just reiterate the importance of making sure that your gaskets are all in alignment, especially your cylinder head gasket when you install it, because you can do like what I did and either have a gasket out of alignment, or as I did, have it out of alignment and then kind of crush the O-ring. And it's no good. It's not going to work that way. So instead of dragging you through, like I said, instead of dragging you through the process of fixing that, what I'm going to do is just move forward with the carburetor. We're going to install the carburetor, then the airbox, possibly the clutch cable and clutch lever. And then sometime during this episode, you're going to notice that cylinder head gets put back on. If you want to see me put the cylinder head on and you want to see me fail in the first place, you can go back to episode 11 where I do that. Just know that I'm going through the same process, and I'll be torquing everything back down to the specs from that episode. So again, never mind the fact that I'm missing a component here. I don't want to drag you through the removal and reinstallation of something, but I do want to mention, hey, another lesson learned here: watch your gaskets. Be careful. Make sure that you're lining that stuff up. Check it from multiple angles. It's interesting because I was checking it in that episode. I was checking it from the opposite side of the bike. Everything looked good. It all looked fine. But you can see in the video that it was out of alignment. So when I put the cylinder head on top, it just squished it, and it was outside of its groove. So new gasket coming in the mail. Let's move forward with the carburetor. So I'm just going to drop these down into here. But now we're ready to start to install the carburetor. Before I do that, I got to take out this cork plug that's currently in the intake, and then quickly just assess to make sure that there's no fibers on the inside of the hole there. Might get away with fitting it all together, but let's see here. And you might be able to see there's actually a notch in the top of the boot here. It needs to get lined up with the carburetor, so once we get this in here a little ways, getting limited by this metal strap still. Oh, jeez. So I don't know if you saw that, but it just popped into place there. So I wasn't able to get a good video of the notch at the top of the carburetor in here. So I'm just gonna roll in a still right now while I get set up to put in the bolt that tightens the strap around the air intake of the reed valve here. Now I think the next step is to route the throttle cable. And that's pretty much it. I'm gonna put a little bit of waterproof grease on the last inch or so of this cable to help it stay lubricated inside of this throttle housing. Otherwise it gets kind of friction worn. But other than that, we're gonna put the cap back on after that. Now the cap just goes back on. The screws go back in. So one screw at a time. I'm gonna put a little tiny dab of thread lock on each one. One thing I'll mention when you're dealing with these plastic caps on the throttle housings, don't over tighten these screws. They're not designed to be tightened. It will actually crack the plastic if you do that. So again, it kind of illustrates the importance of the thread lock. Go. Now this boot can go over the top of this bit here, if it will allow itself to go. And it should slide all the way to this notch. There we go. Now in terms of throttle free play, there needs to be a little bit in there, which this has. And you need to make sure that it returns all the way back every time, and you can hear it in the carburetor clicking back. So at this point I'm actually not going to lengthen the throttle cable at all. I think it's in good shape right here, and I'll have to play with, obviously it's not, there's about I don't know, 4 millimeters of free play, maybe a little more. I'd say less than 1/4 of an inch of free play. So here's the airbox. I had mentioned in one of the early videos that I had already spent some time cleaning on this, and I probably have 15 or 20 hours into this thing, cleaning it up. So now the moment of truth, getting it back together. I can actually, there we go. Gearbox into the subframe. There we go. Now we have more to deal with here with the boot. Gearbox. Need a hammer. Air filter needs to go into the airbox. And this air filter is unoiled, and I'm very aware of that. And there's no grease or anything on it yet, so I'm just going to place it in here for now to try and protect the intake from receiving debris. But I'll be putting a piece of plastic probably over the top of it to keep anything out. There's the new air filter in there. Now I have to tighten down this clamp here. This clamp actually has a stop.
prevents it from going too tight and then pinching the carburetor out.
Now the new mud flap goes right up here, like this.
Again, fasteners into plastic, you don't want to over tighten.
All right, now that we're done with the airbox and the carburetor, I mentioned it that in episode 11, I had noticed that there was a gasket issue, so I ordered a new gasket and took the cylinder head off to find that the gasket had been malformed by my misuse of a gasket. So I've got new O-rings here and available, so what I'm going to do now is I'm not going to drag you through the whole process of installing the O-rings. It's the same as before. If you haven't seen that process, go back and watch episode 11. I'm just going to quickly edit this to where we transition over to the cylinder head being installed correctly with the new gaskets underneath. Here we go. The first and foremost, I did a little bit of cable routing and just wired in the clutch cable and the throttle cable and all that. And at this point, I think it's best to actually put on the hour meter that I bought. Okay, so that last bit about installing the tachometer and the hour meter, not now. We're gonna have to wait until we have radiators before we can do that. So this is the next step. I got a couple packages in the mail. I just want to open them really quickly and go over what's inside. Okay, here we go. Smallest package first. These have been sitting, waiting for me for like 2 or 3 weeks now. But we've installed up on broken bolts, multiple different broken bolts. So now that we've overcome that obstacle, hopefully we have no more broken bolts. This used to be wood, right? FMF turbine core muffler. Turbine core 2 muffler. So this one has a spark arrestor in it. That's why I got this one rather than getting the shorter one. I went with the turbine core 2 because it has a spark arrestor. And that's all that's in there. Sweet calendar. I'll hang it on the wall. Next package. Here we have ourselves
stomach.
A brand new FMF Gold Series fatty pipe for the bike. Wow, I'm surprised they didn't even wrap it in plastic or anything. And the last thing in here, besides another calendar of course, is a Pro Taper
Ew.
Clutch lever.
It's gold.
It is gold because Pro Taper is yellow and black. So this is the part that we might be able to quickly install because it's just a lever. It just bolts onto the handlebars. So I'm going to set up, move the bench and set up for that. Yeah. So before we put on any of the controls, any of the levers, which the first one's going to be the clutch lever, I'm actually going to put on the grips. I got a set of Renthal grips here. I always prefer the half waffle pattern grips. Those are my favorite grips for motorcycle riding. I do like the full waffle as well, but these ones, they offer a little bit more comfort when you just have a loose grip and you're just cruising down like a gravel road. So the first step here in putting on controls is slipping on the grips. I'm going to use some grip glue, and I found that grip glue works really well because it lubricates, and then once it dries, the grips basically don't come off unless you cut them off. All this time I thought we were recording. I guess it's not that exciting. I've connected a cable. Now I'm putting a boot over a thing that doesn't want to go on. Oh, there it went. Drop it over the top of it.
And there's one zip tie going after there.
Did you fine tune the lever adjustment?
No, I have to actually extend this cable bit here in order to do that. So I guess that's what I'll do next. Is
It's
extend.
basically the same thing.
I don't want to fine tune it yet. I just want to rough tune it with these. And neither of these are the right size. Just want it to pull cable tight. Now see there's a little bit of slop at the end there, and that's where this comes into play. That's about right where we want it to be. Okay, the next thing we're going to do here is put on some parts that I got back from the powder coater. I actually got foot pegs back, so I'm going to grab the foot pegs and put those on real quick. I probably won't do any explaining. I'll probably just do a quick time lapse or a series of jump cuts of me putting on foot pegs. Because we're going to eventually need something to stand on here. So I'm going to grab them, I'll show you. So these are the old IMS foot pegs that I purchased a long time ago, and they're pretty scraped up, they're pretty scratched up, and I just took them to my local powder coater and had them powder coated black to match the frame. So they still say IMS on them. They're just an extra wide foot peg in matching frame black. So that's what we're gonna do. We just throw these on the frame real quick.
And a cotter pin.
Okay, the next thing I'm gonna do is put on this chain guide bracket, which just lives right on there. It's got multiple pieces, so we're gonna go up to the bench really quickly and assemble it and then bring it back over here. more thing before we wrap this video up. We're gonna get that pipe on here. So here we go.
There we go. God, that one bolt head was in the way.
Okay, now before tightening anything down, I'm gonna put the springs on the front here.
There's nowhere to work in here. There we go. There we go.
Now we can just tighten everything down here. And the final step, just wipe it up. Just clean it up a little bit. That's gonna be it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching, as always, and let's quickly do some outro shots of the pipe as it's mounted on the bike. And in the next one, we're gonna be doing the wheels. So look for that in the next video. We're gonna be actually doing the, starting on building the wheels, starting with the hubs and the bearings. So again, see you next time.